The snowstorm was brutal. Winds howled like angry beasts, and sharp ice needles hit his face as Jack stumbled forward. His ship had gone down an hour ago. One of the engines had exploded mid-flight. Emergency lights blinked. Oxygen levels were dropping. And now, here he was, an unknown, frozen alien world, with only a basic survival kit. No communication and a bleeding leg. Jack pressed one hand to his wound. Blood soaked through his suit, warm but fading. The cold was eating into his bones. If he didn't find shelter soon, he would freeze to death. Then, through the blizzard, he saw a faint blue glow ahead, a cave. Jack forced his body forward. Each step was harder than the last. The moment he reached the mouth of the ice cave, he collapsed to his knees. The wind couldn't reach him inside, but the cold still wrapped around him like death itself. That's when he noticed he wasn't alone. A figure moved in the shadows. She stood slowly, tall and slim, with deep violet skin and glowing silver eyes. Her long, fur-lined coat was strange and beautiful. Her ears were long and sharp, like a wolf's, and in her hands was a short spear tipped with crystal. She pointed it at him. Jack didn't even have the energy to raise his hands. He coughed once, then slumped back against the icy wall. The alien girl stepped closer, eyes narrow. He expected her to attack. But instead, she knelt beside him. She stared at his face, then looked at the blood seeping from his leg. A frown creased her brow, and she whispered something in her strange language, soft and confused. She didn't seem to understand what he was, but she knew one thing. He was dying. She reached into her bag and pulled out something, a thick sleeping wrap made of warm animal fur. Without a word, she opened it wide. Jack shook his head weakly. "No, I'm not. I'll just rest here." She didn't answer. Instead, she dragged his nearly unconscious body closer. Then she climbed inside the sleeping bag and pulled him in with her. It was tight, too tight. Their bodies pressed together. Jack felt her warmth immediately. It was like hugging a furnace. Her skin was hot to the touch. She held him tightly, and though her face was close to his, her eyes kept darting away as if embarrassed. He tried to speak. "Why are you helping me?" She looked confused at first. Then she muttered something again. He didn't understand her words, but her tone was firm, like she was scolding him. Jack closed his eyes. The heat from her body was saving his life. He knew it, but in her mind, something else was happening. This ritual, this act of sharing warmth so closely, was sacred on her planet. It was a bond only performed between two people connected by fate. And now, because she saved this strange creature by offering the sacred thermobond, she had broken an ancient rule. Still, she didn't stop. She watched him, this odd, soft-skinned being. He had strange eyes and a broken leg. He had no claws, no fur, weak. But he didn't beg. He didn't scream. He didn't even ask for help. He just survived. Something stirred in her chest. She didn't know what it was. Jack, barely conscious, whispered, "Thank you." The words meant nothing to her, but the way he looked at her did. The storm outside grew worse. But inside the sleeping bag, Jack's shivers slowly stopped. His heart slowed. His breathing eased. He was alive. The alien girl didn't sleep that night. She simply held him close, her face pink with heat, not just from her body, but from something else she didn't want to admit. In the quiet of the ice cave, she whispered her name in his ear, Salary. Jack didn't hear it, but deep inside, a bond was already forming. Asterisk when Jack opened his eyes. He didn't know where he was. His body was wrapped tightly in something warm, soft, and alive. He blinked, trying to adjust his vision. His legs still throbbed, but the pain was dull now. His breath didn't fog up in the air anymore. It was warm, too warm. Then he realized he wasn't alone in the sleeping bag. The alien girl was still there. Her arms were around him. Her forehead was touching his. And her body was still pressed against his, from chest to knee. Jack froze. Her silver eyes blinked open slowly. For a moment, they just stared at each other. noses nearly touching. Neither of them moved. Then she pulled back suddenly, her face flushing with a strange pink glow. She muttered something in her language and looked away, clearly embarrassed. Her long ears twitched. Jack sat up slowly, careful not to move too fast. His leg was wrapped in a thick, herb-soaked cloth she had tried to treat him during the night. He could see the little fire she had made out of glowing blue rocks, and beside it, a steaming pot of something thick and dark. Smelled awful. But he was alive, thanks. Again, Jack muttered. The girl turned her head sharply, narrowed her eyes, and pointed at the sleeping bag, then at him. Her voice was soft, but firm. Galak. He frowned. What? She repeated it, then pointed at herself, then him, then the bag again. Jalak. Jack shrugged, giving a small, awkward smile. Look, I don't understand your words, but I'm guessing you're mad that we... shared space. She crossed her arms. Her face was burning now. He didn't know this, but in her culture, Jalak was not just a word. It was a declaration of vow made when two beings shared a sacred warmth. And once spoken, it could not be undone. To Sailry, Jack was now. Her chosen, he noticed her breathing change. She looked tense, almost afraid. Jack tried to ease the tension. Hey, I'm not going to hurt you. You helped me. I owe you. That's it. She didn't respond. Instead, she picked up a small crystal and pressed it against her palm. A soft light blinked 3 times. Then she looked at him and placed the crystal in his hand. The warmth from it traveled up his arm and made his skin tingle. What's this? Jack asked, confused. The girl didn't answer with words. She just held his hand tightly, her own fingers shaking. Outside, the wind howled again. The storm wasn't over. Jack took a deep breath. All right, I guess we're stuck here for a while. Ate in silence. The soup was bitter, but he forced it down. Sailry watched him closely, as if studying him, memorizing his every move. When he coughed, she leaned forward and placed her hand on his chest to check his breathing. It was innocent, pure concern, but her hand lingered too long. Jack looked at her. She pulled away quickly again and hid behind her long hair, pretending. To stir the pot, he chuckled softly. You're really not used to strangers, are you? She turned toward him and slowly repeated a human word she had picked up last night. Warm. Jack smiled. Yeah, you're warm, like a walking heater. Sailry tilted her head. You cold? He nodded. Very cold. Your body saved mine. There was silence again, then she whispered something that sent chills down his spine, even in the warm cave. In my world, when we share body heat, it means we are bonded forever. Wait, what? She looked away. Outside. The storm began to calm. But inside the cave, a different kind of storm was just beginning, one filled with confusion, unspoken meanings, and something deeper. Something neither of them yet understood. Jack thought the worst was behind them. His legs still ached, but he could walk now with a limp. Sailry had created a crutch for him from twisted bone and crystal. She didn't speak much, but her eyes followed him with quiet care. They spent 2 days together in the ice cave. Warm fires, shared meals, stolen glances. It almost felt peaceful. But peace never lasts long on alien worlds. On the 3rd morning, a cave entrance lit up with a strange humming light. Sailor's eyes widened in alarm. She grabbed her spear and stood protectively in front of Jack. Who is it? Jack asked, stepping back. Tralkai, she said sharply. My clan. Moments later, 3 tall figures stepped into the cave. All wore dark armor made from hide and crystal plates. Their eyes were silver like Sailry's, but colder judging. One of them held a curved blade. Another had what looked like a scanner. The last one, taller than all, stared at Jack like he was a bug crawling through their sacred temple. They didn't speak to him. They spoke to her. Harsh words, Sailry answered with fire in her voice. He pointed at Jack, then at the sleeping bag, then at her own chest, where a faint glow had started to show a sign Jack didn't yet understand. The clan members gasped. One dropped to a knee, another cursed loudly. Jack frowned. What's going on? Celery turned to him, her expression unreadable. Then, in slow, shaky English, she said, "They think you claimed me?" Jack blinked. Claimed, like, ... claimed how? She didn't answer with words. Instead, the tall warrior, the leader, stepped forward and removed his helmet. He had deep scars across his face and a long ceremonial braid. His eyes bore into Jack's soul. Then he threw down a stone disc at Jack's feet. Celery gasped. Jack looked down. "What's that? Challenge?" she said softly. "He was promised to me before. Now he demands to fight you for me." Jack stared at her like she'd gone mad. "Fight me? I'm injured? I barely survived the crash." The warrior took off his outer cloak and pointed directly at Jack's chest. "Trasen Vakjalok," he shouted. "He calls you unworthy," Celery translated quietly. "He wants you dead or gone." Jack looked at her again. "And what do you want?" She was silent. Then, without a word, she walked to the leader and placed her hand firmly on his chest. Everyone gasped again. Then she walked back and placed that same hand on Jack's shoulder. "I choose," she said. "I choose the human." Chaos erupted. The two warriors drew their weapons. The leader clenched his jaw, but he didn't attack. Not yet. He gave Jack a cold glare. "Tomorrow," he growled in broken English. "Trial, you survive, or you leave her forever." Then the clan left as suddenly as they came. Later, as the snow began to fall again outside, Jack sat near the fire, silent. Celery sat beside him, quietly sharpening her spear. He finally spoke. "Why did you do that?" She didn't look up.
"Guess."
"You are not cruel. You did not take. You did not mock. You just stayed warm." Jack sighed. "I don't want to fight anyone. I'm not some hero." She smiled softly. "Then survive. That's all we ask." Jack chuckled bitterly. Yeah, easier said than done. But inside him, something had already started to change. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was about her, about proving to her, people, and maybe to himself, that humans weren't just weak. As lost creatures, they could rise, even in a frozen alien world. Snow crunched under Jack's boots as he limped through the frozen valley. His breath fogged the air. The cold was biting, worse than before. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting silver light over jagged ice cliffs. Behind him, the alien camp lights faded. Ahead of him, nothing but deadly silence and white death. The trial had begun. He had 3 days to survive in this wilderness alone. No weapons, no food, no help. If he returned with proof of a successful hunt proof, he could survive like a Trollkahid, earn his place. If not, he'd lose Celery forever and maybe his life. Day 1 was a nightmare. Jack dragged himself through knee-high snow. His legs screamed with every step. He found no shelter, no food. His only warmth was a small stone Celery had secretly placed in his pocket before he left, glowing faintly, pulsing against his skin. A token, a promise. He whispered her name once, just to keep going. Celery. That night, he slept in a hollow tree trunk, using branches to block the wind. His stomach growled. His fingers trembled. But he didn't give up. Day 2 brought worse. He followed strange tracks in the snow, hoping for an animal to hunt even with no weapons. Instead, he found it hunting him, a beast, massive, four-legged, covered in ice-spiked fur. Its eyes glowed blue and steam poured from its nostrils. Jack froze. He had nothing. Not even a stick. But something clicked inside him. He grabbed a sharp ice shard and ducked behind a frozen boulder. The beast sniffed the air and roared. Jack waited. The moment it charged, he rolled, dodged, and stabbed the shard into its shoulder. It wasn't deep, but it bought him time. He ran, not away, but toward a deep ice crevice he had seen earlier. The beast followed. Jack leapt across the narrow gap. The beast tried to follow. It didn't make it. The ice cracked beneath its weight. It fell into the dark, vanishing with a howl. Jack collapsed. Beside the crevice, shaking, He stared at the claw it left behind, still twitching. He wrapped it in cloth and tucked it into his bag. Proof that night Jack found shelter in a cave. He lit a small fire using friction, dry moss, and a spark crystal he found lodged in the cave wall. Pressed Sailry's glowing stone to his chest and whispered again, "I'm still here." Far away, Sailry sat at the edge of her tribe's cliff, watching the stars, clutching her own matching stone. Eyes filled with worry. She had broken the law by helping him. If he failed, she would be punished too. And yet, she didn't regret anything. Day 3 arrived with silence. No wind. No sun. Just a heavy sky like the world was holding its breath. Jack began his return. Moving slowly, legs weak but mind strong. Each step felt heavier, but in his hand he carried the beast's claw, proof he had survived, proof he had fought. And proof he was no coward. But just before he reached the ridge that led back to the tribe, he collapsed. His leg gave out. He fell face first into the snow. He tried to rise, but couldn't. Everything hurt. His body was spent. His fingers slipped. The claw rolled from his hand into the snow. Gone, Jack groaned. He closed his eyes. I failed. A single tear slipped down his cheek. Then a shadow loomed over him. Soft hands turned him over. Eyes he knew stared into his terrified. Desperate, furious, foolish human, Sailry whispered, "You were supposed to return, not die here." She had followed him. She had risked exile. She pressed the glowing stone against his chest stand. Her own matched it with a bright pulse. He felt warmth rush into him. Strength, life. Jack blinked. "Sailry, you came." She didn't answer. She only helped him stand. Then she knelt, dug through the snow, and pulled out the beast's claw. She smiled. "Still here?" Together they returned to the tribe. The crowd gathered, whispers spread. When Jack dropped the claw at the feet of the warrior leader, silence fell. The leader glared and gave a slow nod. "Human survives," he growled. "Trollkai accepts." He was staring at Sailry. "You saved." "Me again," he whispered. She leaned close and replied softly, "Not saved, chose." Jack stood tall, but his body was shaking. Not from cold, but from the strange silence that filled the Trollkai gathering circle. Hundreds of alien eyes were locked on him. Some were angry, some curious, others full of quiet fear. He had passed the trial, brought back the beast's claw, returned alive, but the real storm was just beginning. Because Helry had broken their oldest law. No one, outside the clan, was allowed to interfere in the trial of bonded challenge. She had touched him. She had helped him. And worst of all, she had chosen him. The chieftain stepped forward. His voice boomed across the valley. "Sailry, daughter of the Moonline, do you confess to aiding the outsider during sacred trial?" Sailry didn't flinch. She stepped in front of Jack and placed her hand on her own chest. "I do," she said, "and I do not regret it." Gasps echoed through the crowd. The chieftain raised a trembling hand. "Then by our law your bond becomes sealed. The outsider is now your mate, and you are bound for life. You will bear his mark and his fate." Jack blinked. "Wait. What?" Sailry turned toward him slowly. Her expression was strange, calm but serious. "Almost shy in our world," she said quietly. "A touch during the trial is sacred. It means I chose you completely. I can never choose another. I am yours now, unless you reject me." Jack's mouth went dry. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't even sure what planet they were on. I didn't mean for all this to happen," he said softly. "I know," she replied. "Do I have a choice?" "Yes." That word lingered in the air like frost. Then, to everyone's shock, Jack stepped forward and touched Sailry's cheek with his hand. It was gentle, warm, human, and very, very forbidden. The crowd erupted. Angry cries, weapons drawn, protests shouted. The warriors rushed forward, but the chieftain raised his hand, stopping them. "The law is clear," he said, eyes narrowed. He accepted the bond. Now, they must be marked. From the shadows, two tall priestesses stepped forward with glowing stone blades. Salery turned to Jack. The marking is symbolic. A small cut. We both carry it on our chests. A promise. He stared at her. And if I refuse, they'll take me away. And you'll be exiled. Jack looked into her silver eyes. She had risked everything, her clan, her future, her name, to save him. He took a breath. Do it. The blade was cold, but clean. It barely stung. The mark glowed faintly on his chest, a circle within a star. Salery received the same, just over her heart. The ritual was complete. Now they were bonded by law, by tradition, and by something far stranger than either understood. Later that night, back in the quiet of the sleeping cave, Jack sat by the fire while Salery mixed herbs. He finally broke the silence. So this mark, it's like a marriage. She hesitated. Similar, but deeper. Deeper. How? She looked at him with soft eyes. It means I give you my future, and my body if you want it. Jack's face turned red. Tabu, wait. Hold on. You don't have to, she interrupted gently. I know, but I need you to understand. Not a child. I chose this. I chose you, he swallowed. Why? She stood up and slowly sat beside him. Her voice was barely a whisper. You treated me like I mattered. Not like a warrior, not like a prize, not like an alien, just like someone worth saving. She reached out and touched his hand. A simple, soft touch. But in their culture, that meant more than a kiss. It meant trust. And Jack didn't pull away. Outside, snow began to fall again. But inside their cave, two souls from two different stars sat quietly, marked by fire, ice, and a forbidden touch that changed everything. Jack sat alone on the ridge, the cold wind brushing through his hair. Down below, the Trollkai tribe was celebrating under the aurora-filled sky. Fires blazed. Songs echoed through the ice canyons. They were singing of his survival, of Salery's bold choice, of the sacred mark now glowing faintly on his chest. He should have felt honored, but his heart was heavy behind him. Salery quietly approached. She didn't speak, just sat beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the flickering lights. You're thinking about going back, she said. Jack looked at her, surprised. Yeah. A rescue beacon went out when I crashed. If they got it, a human crew could arrive any day. Salery nodded slowly. Your people will come. He stared at the stars above. I should feel excited, but all I feel is torn. She said nothing. Jack turned toward her. Salery, I don't regret the bond. What we went through, it changed me. But your people, they still don't trust me. Some of them still want me gone. My people are proud, she said, and afraid. You are something they've never seen before, but that doesn't mean you're unwanted. Jack gave a tired smile. Maybe not, but I'm still human. I don't belong here. Her eyes lowered. Her voice was soft. You belong with me. That night, the sky lit up with something new, a bright, moving star. Jack saw it first. That's no star, he muttered. That's a dropship. Within the hour, the rescue vessel broke through the cloud layer, hovered just outside the camp's edge, lights flashing in coded human patterns. Jack's chest tightened. They had come. They were real, and they would. Take him home. He walked toward the vessel with Salery beside him. A crowd gathered behind them, silent and watchful. The Trollkai didn't interfere. From the ship, a human commander stepped out, wrapped in thermal armor. Name, he asked. Jack Thorne. Pilot, Survey Division. The commander nodded. You're lucky we found your beacon. You're listed. As dead, you ready to return? Jack hesitated. His eyes flicked to Salery. She stood quiet, unmoving, unreadable. The commander noticed her. She with you? Jack nodded slowly. Any risk? Laughed once. Lest she saved my life. Twice. The man grunted. We've got room on the shuttle. Command won't like bringing an alien on board. We'd need authorization. Right. Salery stepped forward suddenly. She didn't understand all the words, but she knew what was happening. She took Jack's hand and placed it over the mark on her chest. Her meaning was clear. You are mine. But you are free. Jack stared at her, then back at the ship. The warm light of home called to him. But Sailori's touch anchored him to something deeper. Then slowly Jack turned to the commander and said something no one expected. I'm not leaving. The man blinked. Excuse me? I said I'm staying. This is where I belong now. You're serious? Jack looked at Sailori. More than ever. The commander didn't argue. He handed Jack a transmitter. If you change your mind, use this. We'll be in orbit for one more cycle. Then he stepped back onto the ship, and Jack stepped away. The vessel roared to life, lifting into the dark sky. Jack and Sailori stood together, watching it disappear into the stars. Later, in the quiet of their shared cave, Sailori looked at him. With wonder, you gave up your stars. He smiled. No, I found a new one. She touched his face gently. What happens now? Jack took her hand and kissed it. No, we make this home, together. Snow fell gently across the cliffs of Trollkai. Weeks had passed since the human rescue ship left. Jack never used the emergency transmitter, buried it beneath a frozen tree, the same tree where he first heard Sailori's voice. He had made his choice, and now he was living with it. Each morning, Jack woke beside her. Their sleeping bag was no longer cramped and awkward. It had been replaced with thick handmade furs stitched by Sailori herself. Their shelter, once a cave, had become a home carved into the ice with smooth walls, glowing moss, and strange alien carvings. Sailori explained that the symbols were stories of old now. She was writing a new one with him. But life wasn't simple. Some in the tribe still whispered behind their backs. Some glared when Jack passed. Others, surprisingly, asked him to teach them human ways, how to make fire faster, how to trap without damage, how to treat wounds using his med-dash kit. Jack never forced himself on them. He only helped when asked slowly. Respect began to grow. Even the chieftain, stern and silent, watched him closely now, as if trying to decide whether this soft-skinned outsider was truly a threat, or something more. Then came the snowstorm, worse than the one Jack first faced. Entire herds vanished. The food stores froze. One of the tribal children fell ill. The healers failed to cure her. She grew weaker each day. That's when Sailori came to Jack. Her eyes were wide with fear. She has frost sickness, she whispered. Her heart will stop by sunrise. Jack grabbed his emergency thermal pod, his last piece of Earth tech. I can save her, he said. Sailori paused. If you use it, you'll break. It's single use only. I know. You may need it. He looked at her. That child needs it more. The tribe gathered in silence as Jack placed the child into the pod. He adjusted the dials, activated the heat cycle, and flooded her system with stabilizing gel. It was ancient Earth tech, but to them, it was magic. When the child's eyes fluttered open and she breathed again, the tribe gasped. Some dropped to their knees. Others bowed their heads, and the chieftain. He stepped forward. Time, he spoke to Jack, not as an outsider, but as one of their own. You gave up your life shell. For one who was not yours, he said. You could have saved yourself in the next great storm, Jack replied simply. That's what family does. That night, a feast was held not for the storm's end, but for the human who stayed. Jack was given a cloak marked with Trollkai symbols. Sailori braided his hair with silver strands, a sign of bonded mates. And when she stood before the fire and sang the song of their trial, their fire and their bond, the tribe joined her. Jack watched them and whispered, I didn't just survive here. I became something new. Months later, under the glow of the twin moons, Sailori placed Jack's hand gently on her belly. There is life, she said softly. Jack blinked. Life, you mean? She nodded. A long silence followed. Then Jack smiled, the kind of smile that came from the deepest part of a man who had lost everything and found something better. He leaned his forehead against hers and whispered, Guess I really am home.